September 27th, 1944. 14:15 hours. Eastern France, 6 kilometers north of Metz. A lieutenant colonel named Lemuel Kincaid Shepley watches through field glasses as the third wave of P-47 Thunderbolts screams toward Fort Driant, each aircraft carrying 2,000-pound bombs and canisters of jellied gasoline. The fortress, a gray monolith of reinforced concrete squatting on high ground like something prehistoric, disappears behind mushroom clouds of flame and smoke. When the air clears, Shepley lowers his glasses. Fort Driant looks exactly the same. Not a crack visible in those 40-foot walls, not a single gun position silenced. In that moment, staring at stone that refused to break, Shepley understands something that will cost Third Army 500 casualties before anyone else believes it. They are fighting a structure designed to survive the apocalypse itself. And George S. Patton Jr., the general who conquered 400 miles of France in 4 weeks, is about to learn what emperors and kings discovered across 16 centuries. Some walls don't care how brilliant you are. August 1944. Third Army explodes eastward from Normandy like a predator finally freed from captivity. 400 miles in 4 weeks. Towns fall so fast that map officers can't update positions before the next breakthrough renders them obsolete. German commanders wake to discover American armor already behind them, cutting communication lines, collapsing entire defensive sectors before the Wehrmacht can coordinate responses. This is Patton's doctrine made flesh: speed as a weapon, violence as psychology, audacity as tactical principle. Every mile covered is another nail in Germany's coffin. Intelligence estimates suggest the Wehrmacht in France is finished, shattered divisions retreating in disorder, equipment abandoned, morale disintegrating. Third Army's momentum feels unstoppable, inevitable, almost biblical in its destructive certainty. Then, September brings Metz. The city sits along the Moselle River in eastern France, technically French but psychologically German after 2 periods of occupation following the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 and the First World War. Most American officers see it as another waypoint on the road to the Rhine. Intelligence reports describe undermanned fortifications, obsolete defenses, scattered garrison troops incapable of sustained resistance. After crushing every German position since D-Day, why would Metz be different? But Metz is different, profoundly, catastrophically different. Between 1870 and 1916, German military engineers transformed Metz into something unprecedented in warfare. 43 interconnected fortresses arranged in defensive rings around the city. Not medieval castles with stone towers. Modern fortresses built from steel-reinforced concrete measured in meters thick, with underground ammunition magazines, ventilation systems allowing extended sieges, and artillery positions protected by armored cupolas that could rotate to engage targets across 5-mile firing arcs. The fortress system survived World War I without firing a shot in anger. It never needed to. Its mere existence deterred attack. French military planners who inherited Metz in 1918 studied those fortifications with mixture of awe and horror, recognizing engineering genius devoted to making ground unconquerable. Now Patton approaches with Third Army's full weight behind him, armored divisions that crushed the Panzer Lehr, infantry that stormed defended river crossings, artillery that reduced German strongpoints to rubble. His staff officers assure him Metz will fall within days, a week at most. How could concrete built in the previous century stop modern American firepower? They're about to discover the answer, written in blood and broken metal. September 18th, 1944. Major General Walton Walker's 20th Corps reaches Metz's hour approaches. Initial reconnaissance reports shock everyone who reads them. The fortifications aren't just still standing, they're fully manned, heavily armed, and positioned to create interlocking fields of fire that turn every approach into a killing ground. Inside Metz, General Otto von Knobelsdorff commands 1st German Army from underground headquarters beneath the fortress system. He's got approximately 25,000 soldiers, cobbled together from shattered divisions rebuilding after the Normandy disaster, training units pulled from Germany before completing preparation, and fortress troops who've manned these positions for years. Many lack proper equipment. Some divisions exist on paper only, filled with rear area personnel and recovered wounded. But Knobelsdorff possesses something that negates material disadvantage: time and geography compressed into the ultimate defensive advantage. Every company he commands becomes battalion strength when fighting from fortifications designed to multiply defensive power. Machine gun positions with overlapping fields of fire, artillery pre-sighted on every approach, underground tunnels allowing rapid troop movement without exposure, ammunition stockpiles sufficient for extended combat, and one more factor that transforms desperation into determination. Adolf Hitler has designated Metz a Festung, a fortress city where surrender is forbidden without personal authorization from the Führer himself. No withdrawal, no negotiation, defend until annihilated or relieved. Hitler will never approve withdrawal, and Knobelsdorff knows it. This is a fight to exhaustion. Late September, Third Army launches probing attacks to test German defenses. The results are immediate and brutal. Infantry attempting to cross the Moselle gets shredded by machine gun fire originating from positions impossible to locate through field glasses. Soldiers hit the ground, crawl forward through mud, and die without ever seeing who killed them. Artillery that demolished field fortifications across France barely scratches concrete designed to absorb sustained bombardment from weapons heavier than anything Third Army possesses. Tank commanders discover their guns can't elevate sufficiently to engage firing positions on fortress walls. When they maneuver for better angles, German anti-tank weapons, 88mm guns firing from protected positions, destroy Shermans before American crews can return fire. The wreckage accumulates in approaches to each fort, burning metal marking the limits of what American armor can accomplish against prepared defenses. By September 25th, Patton faces reality he hasn't confronted since landing in Normandy. Third Army isn't advancing. For the first time since D-Day, his lightning war has stalled against an enemy that won't break, won't retreat, won't collapse under the audacity and speed that shattered Wehrmacht divisions across France. Worse, supply problems compound tactical frustrations. Eisenhower diverted fuel and ammunition to Montgomery's Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands. Third Army is fighting on half rations precisely when confronting the toughest defenses of the entire campaign. For a general whose entire philosophy revolves around momentum and offensive action, this is torture. Patton finds himself trapped in siege warfare, slow, methodical, attritional combat that negates every advantage that made Third Army legendary. Fort Driant becomes his obsession. September 27, 1944. Fort Driant sits on high ground overlooking the Moselle River, the strongest position in Metz's outer defensive ring. Intelligence estimates suggest maybe 100 to 200 defenders inside, light resistance, obsolete fortifications, easy target worth taking to demonstrate American capability and break German morale. Every word of that assessment is catastrophically wrong. The fortress was constructed between 1899 and 1905 as part of Germany's comprehensive fortification of Metz. Its walls measure 40 feet thick in sections, steel-reinforced concrete designed to survive direct hits from the heaviest naval guns of that era. The main structure sits partially underground, with ammunition magazines, barracks, command posts, and medical facilities buried beneath meters of earth and concrete. Artillery positions feature armored cupolas, rotating steel domes that protect gun crews while allowing 360-degree fields of fire. Machine gun positions are built into walls at angles calculated to create overlapping coverage of every approach. The garrison isn't 200 soldiers, it's closer to 600, including artillery specialists, fortress infantry trained in underground combat, and engineers who know every tunnel, every passage, every hidden firing position in the complex. They've prepared for weeks, stockpiling ammunition, pre-registering targets, rehearsing responses to assault scenarios. They're dug into a structure designed to be impregnable, and they believe it. 14-15 hours. The first P-47 Thunderbolts arrive overhead. Pilots can see Fort Driant from miles away, a gray mass rising from surrounding terrain like something geological rather than human-built. They roll into attack dives, releasing 1,000-pound bombs and napalm canisters that create explosions visible across the entire battlefield. Inside Fort Driant, the German garrison feels the impacts through meters of concrete. The structure shudders, dust falls from ceilings, but the walls hold. The gun positions remain intact, the ammunition magazines stay sealed. When the smoke clears, German observers emerge from protected positions to assess damage. There is none worth reporting. Some scorching on exterior walls, a few craters in surrounding earth. The fort's defensive capability remains absolutely unchanged. Next comes artillery. Third Army commits its heaviest guns, 240mm howitzers firing shells that can level buildings. The bombardment lasts hours. Each impact creates pressure waves felt in the chest. The sound is apocalyptic, continuous thunder that drowns thought. Shells that can penetrate several feet of reinforced concrete strike Fort Driant's walls and explode, achieving nothing but aesthetic damage. Some rounds penetrate outer defensive works, none reach critical systems. The Germans wait underground, conserving strength, knowing American infantry will come next, and knowing what happens to infantry attacking prepared fortifications without destroying defensive positions first. 1,700 hours. Companies E and B from the 11th Infantry Regiment advance with tank destroyer support. These are veteran soldiers who fought across France. They've stormed defended towns, cleared German strongpoints, survived combat that killed weaker men. They believe their experience, combined with overwhelming firepower, will crack Fort Driant. They walk into hell engineered to perfection. Machine guns fire from armored cupolas American weapons cannot scratch. The sound is distinctive, rapid hammering that creates overlapping beaten zones impossible to cross. Soldiers drop flat, seeking cover in terrain offering none. Mortars begin falling, plunging fire from positions nobody can locate, guided by observers with perfect visibility of the killing ground below. Tank destroyers maneuver for better firing angles, trying to engage German positions with 76mm guns. They can't elevate barrels sufficiently to hit anything critical. When they move to flanking positions, German anti-tank guns engage from hidden emplacements. 3 vehicles explode, instant fireballs of burning diesel and cooking ammunition. The survivors retreat. Infantry continues forward because orders demand it, and professional pride won't permit surrender without exhausting every possibility. Engineers carry Bangalore torpedoes, long tubes filled with explosives designed to clear barbed wire. They crawl through tall grass, concealing wire obstacles that weren't visible during reconnaissance. Men get tangled. Machine gun fire catches them immobile. The grass turns red. Survivors reach Fort Driant's walls. They plant satchel charges against concrete, detonate them, and watch fragments bounce off stone that doesn't care. A few discover drainage passages that might allow entry. They're killed by Germans firing down from positions above, shooting fish in barrels. By nightfall, the assault has failed absolutely. Over 50% casualties in both attacking companies. Ground gained, 0. Fort Driant remains intact, fully functional, and completely lethal to anyone approaching within machine gun range. Patton refuses to quit. His response to the September 27th failure is characteristically aggressive and completely divorced from tactical reality. "I will take Fort Driant if it takes every man in XX Corps." It nearly does. October unfolds as sustained nightmare. More infantry commits to attacks that achieve marginal gains at catastrophic cost. Engineers bring specialized demolitions, shaped charges designed to penetrate fortifications. They reach Fort Driant's walls under covering fire and plant explosives carefully positioned to exploit structural weaknesses. The charges detonate. The walls absorb them. Germans counterattack from tunnels, emerging from exits American intelligence never identified. October 3rd. Elements of the 11th Infantry finally gain foothold on Fort Driant's southwest roof section, a small patch of concrete exposed to fire from surrounding German positions. For 5 days, American soldiers cling to that position while fighting becomes surreal and medieval. Americans above ground try blasting through concrete with explosives carried forward one satchel at a time. Germans below ground emerge through hidden tunnels to attack from directions that change minute to minute. The fighting occurs on multiple levels simultaneously. American positions on the roof, German positions underground, combat in between wherever passages allow access. Communication is impossible. Radios don't function through meters of concrete and earth. Runners carrying messages get killed by machine gun fire crossing open ground. Artillery support risks hitting American positions mixed among German-held sections. Officers make decisions based on fragmented information hours old, trying to coordinate combat they cannot see or control. The weather turns. Rain falls continuously. Temperatures drop near freezing at night. The Moselle floods, washing away pontoon bridges under construction. Soldiers fight through forests and fields in conditions that make mobile warfare nearly impossible. Tanks bog down in mud thick enough to trap 50-ton vehicles. Supply trucks can't reach forward positions, forcing manual carrying parties to haul ammunition and rations through darkness. October 4th. Captain Jack Geary, commanding Company E, sends a runner with a message that changes everything. His exact words, preserved in after-action reports, captured desperation approaching collapse. The situation is critical. A couple more barrages and another counterattack, and we are sunk. We have no men, our equipment is shot, and we just can't go. The message reaches division headquarters. It confirms what field commanders already know, but higher leadership refuses to accept. Fort Driant cannot be taken by direct assault, not with current forces, not with current tactics, not with casualties that will destroy attacking units more thoroughly than enemy action. Compounding the nightmare, other German forts surrounding Metz begin directing artillery onto American positions at Fort Driant. The interconnected defensive system means attacking one fortress brings fire from multiple others. German gunners possess pre-registered coordinates for every approach, every likely assembly area, every piece of ground American forces must cross. Shells arrive with metronomic precision, catching soldiers between Germans emerging from tunnels and high explosive rounds falling from the sky. October 9th. Patton meets with Corps and division commanders for what becomes the most difficult conversation of his career. The statistics are undeniable. Over 500 Americans killed, wounded, or missing. Fort Driant still stands, still fights, still kills everyone attempting to take it. General Leroy Irwin reports his 5th Infantry Division is approaching combat ineptitude. Casualties degrading unit cohesion, morale fracturing under sustained losses for minimal gain. Other operations show more promise, bypassing Metz entirely, encircling the fortress system, isolating German garrisons to force surrender through starvation rather than assault. But abandoning Fort Driant means admitting defeat, means acknowledging that one German position, one fortress among dozens, stopped Third Army cold for 2 weeks. Patton makes the hardest call of his career. Withdraw. October 12th through 13th. American forces abandoned Fort Driant under darkness. Engineers detonate 6,000 pounds of explosives to destroy anything useful. By dawn, they're gone. The Germans remain. The fortress stands. Reports from Metz reach London in late October. Winston Churchill reads them with the eye of someone who has been fighting Germany since 1939, who served as First Lord of the Admiralty during World War I, who commanded troops in combat and spent 5 years immersed in strategic planning for this war. When he learns that Patton, the general who raced across France like cavalry reborn, is now stalled before a fortress city, Churchill understands the implications immediately. In a meeting with his military chiefs, he delivers his assessment. One line that captures the stakes. If Patton breaks Metz, he breaks the spine of the German army. Churchill sees what others might miss. Metz guards the Saar industrial region, one of Germany's most vital manufacturing centers. More importantly, its capture would devastate German defensive confidence. Every soldier defending positions elsewhere knows Metz's reputation. If it falls, the psychological impact will ripple through Wehrmacht ranks, proof that no amount of concrete can stop Allied armies permanently. Churchill makes another observation born from 5 years of total war. You will never know war until you fight Germans. This isn't admiration, it's professional assessment. German troops properly positioned remain formidable opponents regardless of strategic circumstances. His assessment reaches Eisenhower's headquarters. It reinforces the Supreme Commander's concern that Third Army is locked in siege warfare when it should be driving toward the Rhine. Eisenhower authorizes additional resources and approves Operation Madison, a major offensive to break the stalemate using encirclement rather than frontal assault. But resources alone won't crack Metz. Third Army needs new tactics, patience. For Patton, this is psychological torture. If you made it this far, you're the reason channels like ours can keep the past alive. Let me know where you're tuning in from, drop a like, and subscribe so these voices from history continue to be heard. November 8, 1944. After weeks of preparation, Third Army launches Operation Madison. This time, no frontal attacks on fortifications. Instead, double envelopment, encirclement, isolation, systematic reduction. Major General Walton Walker's 10th Corps attacks with 3 infantry divisions, the 5th, 90th, and 95th. The plan is elegant but brutally difficult. Bypass major fortifications instead of assaulting them directly. Cut supply routes into Metz. Isolate German garrisons in individual forts. Force surrender through starvation and ammunition exhaustion rather than direct assault. The weather is nightmarish. Constant rain turns roads to mud that swallows vehicles. Temperatures drop near freezing at night. The Moselle floods, washing away pontoon bridges under construction. Soldiers fight through forests and fields in conditions that make mobile warfare nearly impossible. Tanks bog down in mud thick enough to trap 50-ton vehicles. Supply trucks can't reach forward positions, forcing manual carrying parties to haul ammunition and rations through darkness. But this time, American tactics work. By avoiding fortifications and maneuvering around strong points, Third Army negates the defensive advantages that stopped them in September. German garrisons in outlying forts find themselves cut off. No supplies, no reinforcements, no food, no ammunition, no hope of relief. The psychological impact is immediate. German soldiers defending Fort Driant, the position that cost Third Army 500 casualties, watch American forces bypass them entirely. They see traffic moving on roads beyond artillery range. They hear combat from directions indicating encirclement. Radio communication with higher headquarters becomes sporadic, then ceases entirely. They're isolated inside the fortress they held so fiercely, but isolation transforms strength into prison. November 14th, some forts begin surrendering. Not because American forces assaulted them, but because defenders realize continuation is pointless. They're out of food, medical supplies exhausted, ammunition running low. No relief is coming. The choice becomes surrender or slow death by starvation. November 16th through 17th, American forces complete encirclement of Metz. The city becomes an island surrounded by Third Army units controlling every approach, every supply route, every escape path. Inside Metz, German command under General Lieutenant Walther Krauss realizes his position is hopeless. But he cannot surrender. Hitler's orders forbid it. Festung Metz must hold. Krauss hopes for relief from outside, German counteroffensives that will break Third Army's encirclement and restore supply lines. He listens to radio reports describing Wehrmacht operations elsewhere. No relief comes. German armies everywhere are retreating or defending desperately against Allied offensives. Metz is on its own, alone, forgotten, doomed. November 18th through 19th. American forces breach Metz's outer defenses and enter the city. Fighting becomes house-to-house combat through streets German defenders have fortified for weeks. Every building is miniature fortress, every intersection a killing zone covered by machine guns positioned in structures that must be cleared individually. Every cellar potentially holds German soldiers waiting in ambush. But American numerical superiority, artillery support, and control of surrounding territory provide decisive advantages. Tanks accompany infantry, blasting buildings with main guns before troops enter. Artillery demolishes structures suspected of harboring defenders. Air support strikes concentrations when weather permits. November 21st, American patrols captured General Krauss, wounded and hiding in an underground hospital. His capture signals collapse as organized resistance. Command structure disintegrates. German units surrender individually as officers realize continuation means death for no purpose. November 22nd, the Metz garrison formally surrenders, over 6,000 prisoners immediately. But the forts remain. Fort Driant, the position that devastated Third Army in September, finally surrenders. Its garrison, starved, out of ammunition, isolated, emerges from underground positions that sustained them for weeks after becoming strategically irrelevant. When American officers tour Fort Driant afterward, they understand why September's assault failed. The fortifications are even more formidable than intelligence suggested. Multiple layers of defense, hidden positions impossible to detect from outside, interlocking fields of fire that made direct assault suicidal regardless of courage or determination. This fortress could have held indefinitely if properly supplied. Its fall came from isolation, not conquest. By mid-December, all major forts around Metz have fallen. The final accounting is staggering. 47,000 German soldiers surrender at Metz. Additional prisoners taken by adjacent units during the broader Lorraine campaign bring the total to approximately 75,000. These aren't rear-area troops or poorly trained conscripts. They include veteran units, fortress artillery specialists, soldiers who fought with skill and determination before overwhelming circumstances made continuation impossible. Their loss represents substantial degradation of Wehrmacht defensive capabilities in the West, not just in numbers, but in expertise and cohesion. December 13, 1944, Churchill receives reports detailing the campaign's outcome. His prediction proved accurate. Metz broke Patton, and in doing so, broke something fundamental in German defensive psychology. The Americans have proven they can reduce any defensive position with sufficient determination and resources, but at a price. The statistics tell a sobering story. Third Army suffers approximately 29,000 casualties during the 3-month Lorraine campaign. The 5th Infantry Division alone loses over 7,000 men, nearly half its combat strength.
Tank losses exceed 300 vehicles. Artillery ammunition expenditure is massive, requiring supply efforts that stretch logistics networks already stretched supporting multiple armies. But strategic results validate the price. 47,000 German prisoners at Metz, plus additional forces destroyed or scattered, represent substantial degradation of Wehrmacht defensive capabilities. More importantly, the psychological impact equals military impact. German propaganda proclaimed Metz impregnable. Its fall demonstrates that no position, regardless of strength or historical reputation, can permanently stop Allied forces. For German soldiers defending other positions, watching Metz fall is like watching natural law violated. If Metz can fall, anywhere can fall. That realization, spreading through Wehrmacht ranks, accelerates demoralization already advanced by material shortages, casualties, and strategic hopelessness. Churchill's prediction proves accurate. Metz's capture opens approaches to the Saar industrial region, positions Third Army for future offensives into Germany, and shatters the myth that properly fortified positions manned by determined defenders can indefinitely delay Allied victory.
For Patton, Metz represents the hardest lesson of his career. The general who thrives on speed and mobility has been forced to fight grinding siege warfare that contradicts every instinct. His initial rapid assaults failed catastrophically. Success came only when he adopted tactics he despised: patient encirclement, systematic reduction, willingness to accept that some objectives require time regardless of aggressive pursuit. Eisenhower sends Patton a carefully worded message combining congratulation with gentle critique. The capture of Metz demonstrates Third Army's capability to overcome any defensive position. It also demonstrates the importance of adapting tactics to terrain and enemy capabilities rather than imposing preferred methods regardless of circumstances. British commanders, many skeptical of American tactical abilities, acknowledged Third Army accomplished something British forces never attempted: reducing a major fortress system while simultaneously conducting offensive operations across wide front. Montgomery, never generous with praise for American commanders, admits the achievement required skill beyond mere material superiority. Not through brilliance or breakthrough, but through methodical application of overwhelming force, willingness to adapt tactics when initial approaches failed, and acceptance that some victories cannot be rushed. The lesson echoes through subsequent operations against German defensive lines. When First Army approaches the Siegfried Line's fortifications, commanders remember Metz. When Seventh Army confronts German positions in the Vosges Mountains, they apply lessons learned in blood before Metz's walls. The siege that seemed like failure becomes template for success, proof that no German position, regardless of strength, can survive sustained pressure from forces willing to pay any price for victory. Years later, veterans of the Metz campaign describe memories that haunt differently than other battles. There's no glory in siege warfare, no dramatic breakthrough, no moment when everything changes and victory becomes certain. Just grinding attrition, days bleeding into weeks, bleeding into months of fighting for ground measured in meters, paying for concrete with blood, counting costs that never seem worth the objective until suddenly they are. Survivors from Fort Driant remember the sound. Not explosions or gunfire, those become background noise, constant companion that minds learn to filter. They remember the silence afterward, when bombardments stopped and they waited for infantry to come again, knowing they would come, knowing what happened to men attacking prepared fortifications, unable to prevent what training and duty demanded they do. German prisoners describe a different nightmare: the isolation, watching supplies dwindle while American forces controlled every road, every path, every hope of resupply. Knowing surrender was forbidden, but continuation meant slow starvation. Making choice between immediate death through combat or eventual death through isolation, and choosing neither,
simply waiting until the choice got made for them by circumstances beyond control. When Germany surrenders in May 1945, historians analyzing the war's final year consistently identify Metz as a turning point. Not strategically decisive like D-Day or Stalingrad, but the moment American forces proved they could overcome any defensive obstacle Germany could construct. Churchill's words proved true. Breaking Metz broke the spine of German defensive confidence. It proved that determination, resources, and tactical adaptation could overcome any position, no matter how strong, no matter how long it had stood. That lesson echoed through every subsequent operation against German defensive lines. The cost was measured in blood and time, and resources that seemed excessive until suddenly they weren't. After Metz, everyone knew. The walls that defied conquerors across centuries fell in 3 months, and in their falling, they proved the war's inevitable conclusion, that no amount of concrete, engineering brilliance, or defensive determination could overcome the mathematics of industrial warfare prosecuted by nations willing to pay any price for victory. The fortress fell, and with it fell the myth that anything built by human hands could be made truly impregnable. That was Metz's legacy. Not triumph, not glory, just the cold arithmetic of siege warfare proving, once again, that time and resources properly applied can reduce any position to rubble and ghosts. And after Metz, no German commander could look at fortifications and believe they meant safety. Churchill understood that truth before Patton did. Breaking Metz broke more than concrete and steel. It broke the psychological foundation of defensive warfare itself. The spine of the German army shattered against walls that should have held forever, but didn't, because nothing does.